this is going to be a bit of a strange video. So I've talked a lot, specifically in the realm of DVDs, about the importance of physical media, and I believe strongly in that because when it is digital, when it's on a streaming service, when it's on a website, at best you're renting it. It's not yours. It's just out on loan and you're paying for it. So I believe in books and in the physical handheld book. I enjoy gaming online. I've been playing in a Traveler game for almost 2 years, and I've really enjoyed that. But online gaming does not produce for me the same effect. I really like the camaraderie and the friendship and all of that comes with sitting around a table face to face in person with all the body language, all of the asides, the half hour of meet and greet before, the finishing up in the parking lot, all of that comes with in person gaming. It's something that I miss because I don't do a lot of in person gaming these days. It's something I'd like to get back, and it's something that I think physical books help with. Not that you don't use digital tools or can't use digital tools in a face to face game, but I like the analog nature of just having the book. So, why am I talking about that? Well, recently I moved. This was a relatively sudden thing. It's something that we had talked about for some time, but our hand was sort of forced. And I think that overall it is and will be a good and positive thing. But it's made me reassess a lot. I have a fairly extensive gaming collection, even after the last couple of years of trying to pare some things down in my overall collection, including my gaming material, getting rid of stuff that I know I'm never going to play. Was it difficult for me to admit to myself I'm never going to play in a Stormbringer game? Yes, it absolutely was. I've owned Stormbringer for 35 years and I've never played it. I don't see any indication that I'm going to play it. I don't have a lot of in person friends. In fact, I don't know if anyone that I see face to face with any kind of regularity has even read a Michael Moorcock book, much less is interested in a tabletop RPG around it. So I had to admit to myself, I'm never going to run this game. So I sold off my copy and got rid of it. I've had to do that. With the move and the substantial reduction in space, I've really started to think about what do I absolutely need for the hobby. And when I give real serious thought to that, it is much, much, much less than I originally thought it would be. And so I'm going to look at what I think I need with a couple of variations. A couple of variations based on how much room I think I might have in the future. Because where we live now is a limiting factor, but we don't know where we'll move next. Will it be the same size? Will it be slightly larger? Will it be slightly smaller? There is a lot up in the air as far as that goes. And so, what do I absolutely need? And it got me thinking, the game that got me into this hobby was basic role playing. This new edition of basic role playing came out, and I picked it up finally. Excuse me. And I think if and I haven't read this new edition, but if this edition of basic role playing works the way I believe it does, this is all I would need, frankly, to run games for decades. And I don't have that long left in me. So if I had to cut down to just one thing, it would probably be basic role playing. If I really wanted to get extreme, during the move, I found my copy, and literally it's a photocopy, of the original basic role playing booklet, which is like 16 pages long or so. And honestly, that is all I would need to run games for years. So if I had to, I could strip it right down to that basic thing. If, however, I wanted to get a little more creative, a little more whatever, and I had a little more space, I have figured I would bring the Keeper's Rulebook for Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu is, if I had to choose a single game, this is my favorite game. If I absolutely had to, there was no possibility for saying like runners up or anything like that. If I had to pick just one game, it'd be Call of Cthulhu. I could run Call of Cthulhu for the rest of my life and probably be perfectly happy. Because within Call of Cthulhu, I could mix in other genres. I could run a science fiction game. I could run a historic game. I could run fantasy if I wanted to. There's all kinds of variations that you can do. And all you really need for this game is the Keeper rulebook. Everything else is great. It's cool stuff. But all you really need is this book. This has everything you absolutely need to play. It has character creation. It has the rules. It has some monsters. I think it even has a couple of adventures. So if you need an example or something like that, whatever. It has everything you need. And does it have an adventure? Am I full of crap on that? Now I want to know. But anyhow, if I never had another game, I could just use this and be happy. If I were the contents, where would I be? I don't know. Let me just put back here. Yeah. We do have an adventure in here. At least one. Chapter 15, Scenarios. Oh, good. Yes, that's right. Amidst ancient trees. I think there's actually maybe 2 or 3 in here. But anyhow. Yep, Crimson Letters. Okay. Anyhow. So if I had room, I'd bring this. Now that's 2 basic role playings in a row. Maybe that's a lot. But if for some reason I'm traveling and I'm traveling light, and I like Call of Cthulhu and I could run Call of Cthulhu for the rest of my life, but this is a big, heavy hardcover book, and I don't want to carry that. It's also Gentlemen versus Demons. This is not at all Lovecraft specific. In fact, it feels much more Edwardian. It feels like Karnak-y or something like that. It even feels maybe like a slightly more supernatural version of like Sherlock Holmes or something. But look at this. Super trim. It's very similar. It's like Call of Cthulhu, but ultra streamlined with a bit more of a pulpy vibe. This would do the job. If I only had room in a backpack and I was carrying other stuff, I could use this game and I could probably run Call of Cthulhu games, Call of Cthulhu-esque games for the rest of my life with this, if I had to. But let's say I have room to do a couple of extra things, other systems that I really like. I haven't actually read this particular book, but this is the D6 from West End. This is their D6 RPG. I believe this has been redone. Somebody has like rebranded it and they've done a generic D6 that's out on the market today. But I believe that's what this is from officially from West End. It's the system that was used for Star Wars. I think it worked great for Star Wars. Nice, simple, easy to use thing. And this is the generic version of it. Sometime I got to read this, so I don't know if I'd actually decide to take this with me, but nice for a little variation. Speaking of variation and D6s, again, we're talking about if I had the space, I would bring along Tales from the Loop. Now, I use Tales from the Loop as a kind of stand in for the overall Year Zero engine. Alien is probably my favorite implementation of the Year Zero engine, but I think Tales from the Loop, I don't know, this one just captures me. Plus, it's got that beautiful Simon Stollenhag art, which is enough for me, I think, to choose this one as my representation of the Year Zero engine, which I very much enjoy. And part of why I might not bring Alien with me is that one of the other books, and this one again is really handy if you're traveling super light, would be Mothership. I've gone back and forth on Mothership. This is the Zero edition. The first edition is out. I have not picked it up. I've thought about it, but I have not picked it up. When I first read this, I was really excited about it. I thought it was very cool. And I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to use. And I talked at the time about how this is what I'm going to use to run 2300 AD, because you could drop the horror out of this and it's just got a good, solid, grounded, I don't want to say realistic, but grounded science fiction vibe. I love it. Great. And it has elements of basic role playing in it, which again, great. I love it. You know, it's like adjacent. It's not the same, but it's like adjacent. Then Alien came out. And to me, Alien is so much more what I want from a system for a lot of reasons. And I reread Mothership. And when I was rereading Mothership, I think I misunderstood something. And I felt like your characters would just fail all the time. But it was sort of in a couple of things that I watched, people talked about it, and I realized that I was me reading into things incorrectly, and that your characters are not as useless as they seemed on my second reading. But Mothership, that could be used to scratch my sci-fi itch. I'm a big sci-fi guy. That's my genre. I'm much more into sci-fi as a rule than I am, say, fantasy. But fantasy is just so much easier, and it's so much easier to get people invested in. But Mothership could easily fill a niche for me. Now, if I'm up to the point of having a small trunk and I'm bringing these books along, I have thought this is quite heavy, but I've thought Dragonbane would be a possibility, because fantasy is not my genre, but it is easier to get people invested in. Dragonbane has so much basic role playing in its DNA, but is sort of streamlined in some ways. In some ways, it's a little more crunchy, but for the most part, it's fairly streamlined. Has an evocative setting without being intrusive and without having, mountains and mountains of lore. So I don't have to bring any more world books. This box set has 10 adventures, which is plenty to get me started. And it just seems, like fun. And if I had to limit my space, but we're still looking at a pile that is only, I don't know, about 6 inches deep, even with these on top of it. This could all fit in a suitcase. If I were traveling overseas, for example, I could fit this all in a suitcase fairly easily. And it would cover, I think, most of my bases. Now, the last few years have taught me that I can't always find players when I want to game. I have a hard time with focus. So doing solo RPGs has been a bit of a challenge, but I have enjoyed some of the ones that I've done. The most impressive one I've seen so far is Thousand Year Old Vampire. And so if I had the space for a sort of standard size hardcover book, this is like a novel, feels like a novel from the look of it, I would bring this along, because I only played this once and it was pretty fantastic. And I can imagine that this would play out so differently every time you did a cycle for it, because who you are when you start changes everything. What things happen as you go through this change, everything can change. The prompts can change. The whole tone can change. So I think that this could be a lot of utility. You could get a lot of replayability out of this over time. And it's such a beautiful book, anyhow. It's just very pretty. Um, but I think also, again, the utility aspect of it. If we're trying to have just a little bit of stuff, as few books as we can, having a solo game that has a lot of replayability, I think, is pretty great. One I have zero experience with, in fact, only recently acquired and have not read, but I did see a thing on, was Glide. This is another solo game, and this tonally is much more what I'm into. This is like mellow, cozy science fiction where you're just out exploring this weird alien world. And I think that's really groovy. I'm going to read this. I'm going to try to play this at some point, and if I like it as much as I hope I will, then this would probably go in my little bag of tricks. Because again, the I mean, I don't even like vampire fiction. Honest to goodness, I just reread Dracula earlier this year or late last year, and it's not a good book. Stoker's not a good writer, and yeah, and I just generally don't go for vampires. This is a great game, and I found the I'll call it session, the cycle that I played through was compelling, but vampires aren't my thing. This is much more my thing, and so I hope that even again they're very very different types of games, but I hope that this does in fact scratch the itch that I think it will, and this would go into my little bag of tricks. And then finally, we're talking that, if after all of what I've just looked at, if I still had a little bit of space, recent acquisitions that I read and was very impressed with, that I think would carry me a long way into the Weird and Wild and into the Sets and Citadel. Again, we're talking fantasy, but these are toolkits. They're not, even though there's an element of setting to them, they are more for building your own. And these combined with basic role playing or combined with Dragonbane, that would be all I would need to run fantasy games for years and years and years. And I think that that can't be like overstated. I think that you don't need that much, but this, and I don't need these. I ran with just the basic role playing 16-page pamphlet rules. I ran games for 3 or 4 years before I really started getting into any other games. So I think it's important to remember that you don't need so much stuff. I'm not even sure if this is still recording. Ah, it is recording. Okay. Because I went on a bit. Anyhow, that's just some thoughts on a little bit more minimalist gaming. Now, I realize that, I say minimalist, and this is still probably a couple $100 worth of material that weighs probably 10 pounds. I'm not saying that you need all of this. As I think I made clear at the beginning of this, I could go with just the one book if I had to. But if I brought everything and condensed everything down to what I feel like could get me through the rest of my life of gaming, if it had to. So say my wife comes home and she says, I just got a job offer and we're moving to Madrid next year. And I've got to pack up everything that I absolutely need to bring with me. This could do it. This could get me through. And I wouldn't need anything else. And so I've been thinking about that and thinking about that and living in a smaller space. And I'm not getting all Marie Kondo because being surrounded by books sparks joy in me, even if I'm not reading those books currently, even if I'm not using those games. Having them, flipping through them, thinking about them, thinking about the potential games I could run, it sparks joy. But if I had to, and I had to cut down, I think this might be my kind of bug out bag of gaming. And I just think maybe it's a good idea for us to think about that. Maybe it's not, but it's what I'm thinking about. And it sort of felt good as a little exercise to look around and see, what do I really need? I've done it with DVDs. I mean, I because of circumstances in my past, I have piles of DVDs, like offensive amounts of DVDs, and I had just ridiculous amounts because I was getting them like a couple bucks at a time. It was nuts. I bought so many DVDs over the years and Blu-rays too later on. So getting rid of a lot of them wasn't that hard. But even now, after I pared it down to just this wall behind me, I still look over here and I'm like, do I need this? Do I need this? Do I need this? Probably not. I could pare this down easily, I think, by half again if I needed to. And I think it's maybe healthy to think about that sometimes. Again, I believe strongly in physical media, but it's a balance. And, who knows? If I go live on a tropical island and wait for the end of civilization, I'm probably not going to take these guys with me, but I may bring these game books with me. So, anyhow, until next time, check out the links below if you feel like it. If you want to support the channel in any way, there are some links down there where any help is appreciated. Life is complicated. So, any help that you are able to offer, if you feel like it, is appreciated. In the meantime, just a like will be great. So, until next time, take care.